I don't see Kevin now.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, Lisa.
Are we good? Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the May meeting of the Police Advisory Board, and we will begin with the roll call. Myself, Lisa Robinson, present. Eunice Lehmacher is present on Zoom. Kevin Dull, he did mention that he might be joining us by Zoom if possible. If not, he has an excused absence. Winton Hunter, present. And our student position is currently, Clemson student position is currently vacant. Dr. King.
Present.
And Elaine the same. And Jeffrey Roberts absent. And Ashby Williams has an excused absence. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Everyone should have a copy of that in front of them.
Rick, the keyboard's not. Sorry. Trying to type her a message in.
And if you would just strike it at the top and indicate May. Any additions, changes to the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor? Okay. And then next we'll move on to the approval of the previous minutes. So you should also have a copy of that in front of you. You just take a few minutes if you haven't already reviewed it. Any additions, changes?
Move to approve the minutes.
Do you have a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our citizen comments. And for those who are calling in, the call-in number is 864-65. Oh, no, sorry. The no calling number is just the Zoom link. So if you sign on to the Zoom link and you have a comment, you can go ahead and make that from the Zoom link. Do we have any citizen comments on Zoom at this time? Okay. And do we have any citizen comments? Thank you. Okay.
Margaret Thompson, citizen of Clemson. I believe at the last police advisory board that it was passed that y'all had approved or sent up a proposed ordinance for anti-tethering. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Well, what I've heard about it, and these are the reasons I'm gonna give that I hope that they'll pull it and go back to the drawing board. We already have laws against animal cruelty. Why do we need to pass another law? Unfortunately, many states it's difficult, time consuming for animal control officers to prove that the animal abuse is occurring. Officers don't have the resources to watch a single house for 24 hours to determine how long the dog is actually being tethered, whether it's being given fresh food and water. That's one argument that has been made. And all this I'm looking at is research. And Mr. Bill, I hope that you will pay attention because I know you like animals. Another argument that I have proposed that I keep, aren't anti-tethering laws unfair to people without fences or enclosed yards? While an anti-tethering law may inconvenience a few people, the benefits outweigh the costs. The local government must weigh public safety against a small group of individuals, and I believe that's what's been happening here, that you don't want to hurt poor communities or certain sections in the city. Couldn't disagree more. There is no public benefit to tethering. Dog owners may either build a fence and close the yard or keep their dogs inside for people of limited means.
I just want to let you know that you have 3 minutes in total, and you have 1 minute.
Tell me
remaining.
when, am I close?
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, do other communities have anti-tethering? The answer is yes. I'm wanting to get rid of it altogether. And what I propose, and I don't think the proposal was sent up because I was on the subcommittee. I propose that we do away with tethering, that give them a year's grace period to get fencing or something like that. Let organizations help the people that are in the less economic areas and help them with that. And there's one more point I want to make real quick when I find it. I've heard all these arguments, so.
You're at time, but I'll ask you to conclude.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. This is my biggest argument about this whole thing, and this is where I think y'all's ordinance is totally wrong. Can we make sure people aren't tethering in a cruel way? Some communities have passed vague laws that prohibit tethering in a cruel manner or for longer than 12 hours. A law that is open-ended isn't effective, nor is it helpful to an animal control officer because it's hard to prove violations. These are the 3 arguments I've been making all along. And what y'all proposed will never be enforced because what y'all proposed is already now in the books in state law, food, water, and shelter, and among other things. So why in the world would y'all do this when you can do it away with it altogether and be an example to the state of South Carolina? Clemson can be an example. We were forced to wear masks, but you won't take chains off dogs. If they live in Clemson Downs, where there's no fencing allowed, it's reasonable to assume to let the dog be tethered outside with the owner present. But I'm gonna fight this. I'm gonna fight that is coming up, that it will not work. It will not work. But taking chains off dogs and giving the people a year to let us help them with something if they can't afford fencing will work. I'll make one other quick point. I've heard the chief say, well, people have dogs to guard. Okay, that's great. So.
Well, you're at time, so.
Just let me make one quick point and I'm done. Okay. If you have a dog in the yard and it's barking, you don't know if it's getting ready to be an intruder, somebody come in the yard or another animal. But if that dog is in that house and somebody's trying to come in, that's an intruder. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any others? Were there any discussion or questions for the citizen comment? Do we have any other citizens on the line? Anything, nothing on Zoom? Okay. Okay. All right. Since there's none, we'll move on to the department status.
Mr. Chair, before we move
Yes.
on for Ms. Thompson, the tethering ordinance is on the agenda for council Tuesday, May, is that the 31st? 31st.
Yes.
So that it's up for discussion before council on that date. And we're going on to department status?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we've been in a fury of hiring and interviews. We have a lot of things going on there. We have hired a sergeant from the sheriff's office who started this week. He's certified and he'll be entering the FTO program shortly. Next week, we also start one certified, came from the sheriff's office, as well as one non-certified. So the certified officer will be entering this FTO and the non-certified will be assigned to training and other duties. And then we also have a second non-certified, I believe is starting next week as well. We have a non-certified person who finished his 4 weeks of virtual academy, passed his cumulative exam on Wednesday and is supposed to start the academy on Sunday. We have one that was in the academy who was scheduled to graduate tomorrow, but unfortunately fell ill and has a 2-week delay, but will graduate in 2 weeks. And we have one vacancy for an officer that we did interviews for today, and I believe the panel made recommendations and then put those folks in the background stage. One of our dispatchers today that we've already hired, she's been on the job for a little while, but she hasn't been certified in the jail school. She graduated from the jail school today, and she'll be starting her 911 operator certification shortly. And we have two vacancies for dispatcher. One is in the background phase. We should be giving a job offer too soon. And one we have an interview process next week for. And we did an interview process for our parking enforcement supervisor position, and we have a candidate in background right now for that position. So we are moving forward quickly, hopefully. Let's see, that's where our vacancies are for department status. If you're okay, I can go ahead and move into crime review.
I just had a question on the, what's the length of time for the people who are non-certified to start their certification process?
So non-certified officers have to do a 4-week virtual online academy through the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. And at the conclusion of that, they have to go down to Columbia and take a comprehensive test. If they pass it, then they're slotted to enter the academy, which is 8 weeks. What we don't have control over and we can't really gauge is after they take their comprehensive test, if they pass, when they're slotted for the next academy. It just depends on how many slots are available for the upcoming academy classes. So if they're non-certified and things go quickly, you have probably a week of orientation, 4 weeks of training, a week of the comprehensive test. So that's 6 weeks. And then you enter the academy for 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then once you come out of the academy, then they have a minimum of 4 weeks of the FTO, sometimes 6. Just depends on how quickly they catch on.
So maybe 4 or 5 months before we would have.
Before they
those
are solo.
additional- Yeah. Okay.
And I stress, unless they have prior experience somewhere, they may be solo, but they're still learning a lot.
And how many dispatchers do we currently have?
We have 2, 4, 5, 6, and we have 2 vacancies.
And there's 2 vacancies. There any questions on the department status, anybody? Okay, move on to the crime review. Thank you.
All right, moving on to crime review. In the month of April, we had 2 rapes that were reported, 1 robbery, 4 burglaries to a structure or apartment, 16 burglaries to vehicles, and have of note, because we do a lot of order maintenance and school was still in session downtown, we had 47 liquor law violations, which is underage, and 20 drunken disorderly charges and 8 DUI charges. As far as traffic enforcement, we wrote a total of 270 citations in the month of April. 113 of those were for speeding. We did issue a citation for passing a school bus, unfortunately. And the rest of the citations were either for failure to maintain their lane or other driver's license violations, suspensions, etc. One thing of note, and this was in the month of May, not in April, but on May, I think it was 12th, the new stop signs were installed on Berkeley at frontage, and we have put officers out there to monitor that. And I don't have video to show you today, but it is amazing how many people are going through the stop sign and not even touching their brakes.
Yes.
We've issued several citations and conducted several traffic stops out there and continue to do so. It's kind of scary.
It does catch your eye the way it was reconstructed. I mean,
Mhm.
that should be some signal that
I
Well,
don't,
they
different plus the
put,
signs.
they put the signs and the warnings before they put the stop signs in, warning
Yeah.
everybody that it was coming. It's like people aren't even noticing that they're there.
I
was
go
looking
through
at
there
their
quite
phone.
often and I just see when I'm stopped,
Mhm.
people are rolling through.
Mhm.
They're not stopping, they're just rolling.
Well, as they are able to sit out there and monitor that, that's what they're doing. This is the last week of school, so the traffic count on that road should go down because the school won't be in session, but we're still going to be out there enforcing that. And that is it for crime review.
Okay, any questions for Chief on the crime review report? I was just wondering, is there anything else that can be done to get for where the stop sign is? Is there something that can be put prior to it as, you know,
I'll have to-
yield or
So
caution?
part of the reason why I've asked for the video and the statistics is so I can share that with the engineers so that they can
Mhm.
give input on what we could put there. It is a state road, so we have to work with DOT on whatever we put up there. And DOT is the one that came up with the original design, so they installed it as per their protocol, so.
I don't know if you can do this or not in the city, but I know when they put in a circle out there in the country where I used to live, before the circle, they had dropped the speed, they dropped the speed limit to like, so you know if you were coming up on something instead of flying through the circle, you know, those circles. So I didn't know if maybe you could put a drop the speed limit so people would slow down. And
I can ask DOT, but
Yeah.
DOT controls the speed on that road because it's a state road. So
Or speed
one of the
bumps.
things that they're going to be doing in addition to putting that in is over the summer, they're going to narrow, or should I say shorten, the school zone and drop the speed limit for the school zone. So the school zone will not extend over 123 anymore. It'll be on the other side of 123, closer to the school. And then on the other end, it'll come in a little bit closer to the school, but it'll drop the speed limit as well. So instead of going from, I think it's 30 there, from going from 30 to 25, it'll go from 30. I think they're going to drop it to 20 is what they agreed to. So it'll drop it even more.
We had a citizen question.
I knew that it was, I'm sorry, I knew that it was gonna be put up there, and I myself, this last week, about went through it myself. Because if you're coming from the school, going towards Frontage Road, you don't see the warning sign till you get on the other side of the bridge, and it's like right down there at the bottom. So even though I knew prior from y'all and everything like that, it seemed like it would have been better if allowed, and I may have missed it altogether, to put the warning on the other side of the bridge before you cross, as well as on the other side, to let them know, because it just came right up on me. But I think the biggest thing was that deterrent was that yellow median there that was very noticeable. But you had no warning before you crossed over that bridge.
Thank you.
I'll refer it to DOT and see what they say.
And they would have to take a look at that. Okay. Okay, the next thing we have on the agenda is the officer commendation nominations. So we discussed this at the last meeting, to have a subcommittee of this board that would review commendations and then have them to be able to come here so that we can congratulate them and make presentations if necessary. So I don't think at the prior meeting, looking at the minutes, that we actually established that subcommittee. And Mr. Roberts, who was actually his original idea, isn't present today. But we can, I think at this time, take names of those who were present on the board today who might be interested. And then, I don't know, Chief, if you have something else to weigh in on with regard to this.
Well, one of the things that wasn't clear when we discussed this last time was, and you reiterated that we were going to do a subcommittee to hear the awards, I guess, vote on them or recommend them for issuance, and then present them at a police advisory board meeting to the officers. So we just need to, I have actually one award for 3 officers that has come in It's no surprise, it's the incident at 12 Mile Beach. So that one is ready to be heard and
Okay.
moved on. So once we just get the names, and then we move forward and do it before the whole, before the whole board, we can do that.
Okay, okay. At this time, do we have any board members who are able to work on this subcommittee? I have Mr. Roberts' name listed since this was his idea originally.
Sure.
Okay. Can we get one more?
If you need somebody, I can.
Okay, great. All right.
So for the record, it was Jeff Roberts, Dr. King, Mr. Hunter, anyone else? Okay, if anybody else wants to join later, we just need to know.
Okay, great.
And so we'll send out something to have them meet. And so Mr. King, Mr. Hunter, do you have a particular day in the month that would be better for you to meet and a time?
Like a day of the week, usually Monday afternoon or Thursday afternoon.
Okay, I'll reach out to Mr. Roberts and see. So Monday and Thursday afternoons. And when you say afternoon, you're talking between 2 and 5?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have me on there as well? Because I think I originally said that I wanted to be on this. Right? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, at this time, we are now on to board member open discussion. I only have a few comments and let everybody else weigh in. As was mentioned previously, the tethering ordinance will be brought to council on Tuesday, May 31st. The special events ordinance, that subcommittee met this week and continuing in the process of getting that drafted. Once that's done, that would be able to be brought to the board at a subsequent meeting. The night out subcommittee is still looking for a time to meet to consider dates and the event for the night out. And then we just discussed the accommodations subcommittee. That's all I had. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I think at the last meeting, when going back to the National Night Out, I want to confirm, I think we discussed August 13th, which is after when the normal National Night Out is normally held. Is that the date that we're still set on?
Right, and that was not to conflict with the start of school or move in.
Okay. I just need to, and then Dawson Park was the location, so I need to reserve that, and that's why I want to confirm it.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a question about the tethering off ordinance. It's going to be presented to the council next week. And I'm asking this because I don't know. So what's the process with the council on that? When they get an ordinance?
So first it's referred to council for discussion, and that's what's going to occur on Tuesday. And then council will decide at that point if they want to move forward with either the ordinance that's presented to them, a version of the ordinance that was presented to them. They can make amendments to it if they want. And if they want to move forward, then it'll go before first and second readings at future meetings. If they choose not to move forward, then it'll just die right there.
Will the discussion that they have be open?
Yes,
To the public,
it'll
okay.
be an agenda item like any other agenda item, and just like what we have here, people will have a set amount of time to speak before the agenda item. So they'll call the agenda item, they'll ask if there's members of the public that want to speak on it. Those folks will speak, and council may or may not ask them questions at that point, and then they'll close the public comment, and then the council members will have their discussion, and then if they choose to make a motion, then they'll do it at that time. Or they could also choose to refer it to another meeting or to another subcommittee. They have a variety of options.
I'm just curious how that process goes.
Lisa, are you presenting the?
Yes, just in terms of, this is the draft and proposed ordinance coming from the advisory board. And they'll
Yeah.
open it for discussion, citizen discussion.
In my discussions with Andy and the mayor, they're gonna want to hear from the board representative what transpired and how it came to, and they may have questions based on that as well. So that's generally how they do it. It's no different than if the plan board brought something before the council would work on. The representative from the plan board would be there to answer questions if they had any.
Do you have a copy of that final?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Copy of what?
The
ordinance that was.
Yeah, I emailed it out. I can email it out
Give
again.
it to
Will
me.
you email it to
I
me
emailed
again?
it to you again.
Somehow in the fray, I lost it.
Send me another email and I'll send it back to you. And also it will be,
It should be
it'll be
posted.
attached to the council's backup. So
Oh,
it
okay.
will be
Well, I
there.
get that, so I'll.
When I
that'll
have
be
the
fine.
agenda posted.
That'll be fine, yeah.
So Chief, I had a question with, the recent events, and I guess Clemson Elementary School is the only public school in the city limits. I don't know whether Montessori is, but I believe Edwards and Daniel are not in the city limits, but I would assume there's any particular monitoring or protocol with these events. As we know, they can happen anywhere, and there's not a wall around the school, and just the impulsiveness of these incidents. I guess I'm looking for some reassurance.
Well, I think we can twofold. Unfortunately, these types of events that have occurred in the past have necessitated better planning, better security in the schools. And I know that the Clemson Elementary School has security measures in place for its staff. Everyone that shows up at the school has to go through the front office. The doors are locked. They have to be let in. Our school resource officer is always moving around the school, has a radio to communicate with the school staff, monitors things as kids arrive at the school and also when they leave. And so there's definitely school board protocols in place to have a more secure school. Now, if anyone does any bit of reconnaissance, they're going to find weaknesses in whatever plan that's put into play. And obviously we don't want to turn our schools into prisons and fortresses because it's a school. So there is that risk there, but that is part of the protocol of the training for an SRO is the security of the school. That's their primary responsibility for being at the school. And I know all the SROs that we've had there to date are very concerned about the students and the staff at the school, and they do everything they possibly can to keep them safe. Now, from a police agency perspective, again, that's necessitated training, and it falls right into the active shooter training for not just at schools, but at any location, and an all call to our surrounding agencies for assistance. So if we had, God forbid, something like that, university police would respond, the sheriff's office would respond, central will respond, anybody in the immediate area will respond, and we'll immediately put a plan of action in play and try and deal with that situation. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, it does. I mean, the SRO, is the SRO present when the students are out of the building, on the grounds? I mean, are they?
They're present on the property. So for instance, if there's a physical ed going on at one part of the property, they may not be out there with them when they're out there. They may be in some other part of the school dealing with another situation, because I know they do assist with disturbances and stuff like that. Children that are not behaving well. Usually we allow the school to deal with those issues, but sometimes it gets to the extreme and they need a little help. But for the most part, the school staff handle those issues.
know, one of the things I've heard in the media, and I know the facts are still coming out, so these things may not be as accurate, that it took the officers who did arrive on the scene a lot of time to be able to get into the school and to the particular classroom where the person was. Is there, and that seems strange to me because I thought they would just like bust down a door or something and go through a window or whatever. But they said they actually had to find like keys and things to be able to access. Is there something that can be done as a preventative measure to make sure that our forces have access to exterior keys or interior keys, areas where they may need to have that if they cannot readily get that from the SRO or the front office even? It just seems strange to me. And
Yeah,
again,
so-
I know the facts are
So
still.
one of the competing priorities with that is you're trying to, the first priority is to keep the school secure. And the more things that you put into place to allow officers who are not normally assigned to the school to get into the school, you're not as secure as you were if those things were limited. So there's a dichotomy there and a competing priority there. So to overcome those things, one of the things that we should be doing, and we haven't done since before COVID, is we do drills at the school. So we know the layout of the school, we know where the doors are, we know, when staff is giving information of where the incident is occurring on the campus, we have an idea of where it is and we can respond accordingly. That's a discussion that we have with school board officials regularly, and they understand that as well. And I think part of their protocols is their staff is not only making sure that the children are safe and secure, but recognizing that the people that are coming there to help them have to get in as well. So having staff assigned to help us get in is part of their protocol. So.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
It does seem that these incidents, that many times we find retrospectively that there were some tip-offs or warning shots. It may have been on social media, on extremist or reactionary type sites, but it seems, and I don't know whether National Night Out is the time, but to try to get the message out again, as it seemed to be when there were high alerts for terrorism. If you see something, say something. Students, because it doesn't appear that surely some individuals saw some of this information, most likely, but
I would say part of the problem is, and part of the issue when we hear from the news sources of these warning signs, they're hyper-focusing on those things. And they're making their story to say, well, this should have been a warning sign. But in reality, it's those behaviors, activities are blending in with everything else that's going on. And it's not abundantly obvious when it's occurring. There are several people in our community who behave differently than the majority of the community. It's not necessarily an indication that they're going to go get a weapon and shoot up a school. And some of the things that the news media focuses on are some of those same behaviors that we see frequently in other people. So it's hard. It's really hard to do that now. We have stories on both sides of the aisle where people have seen things like that, have reported it, they've gone, they've intervened, and nothing's happened. But you don't hear of those, and that does happen from time to time.
And I'm not being critical of that not being found. I'm just saying, it looks like if there are some warnings, if people will speak out. I know it's time consuming to investigate that, but.
Well, if it's reported to us, we're going to investigate.
Right, yes.
But I think part of the human nature is to speak out about things that would directly impact us individually or our immediate family. And if it doesn't, you may recognize it, but not really put more effort into it because it's not going to directly impact you. And I think that's why a lot of these things that are observed by other people are not reported. And if they are reported, it's not until after something happens and go, I kind of saw this, that, and so, well, why didn't you call? Well, I didn't want to get involved, or I didn't want to negatively affect them or put them in a negative light. And so we hear the whole gamut when it comes to that.
But I think I understand what you're saying is also is that there's just so much of this rhetoric out there. For some individuals, it's just commonplace all along. They may not be a threat, but that's even scary because one day they can decide.
I think too, the problem is that most of and they have found that this young man did have communication, because some girl from Germany that he was communicating with, she had to get permission from her mother to call in to say it. He described everything he was going to do. I think with kids, they see more of this chatter about what people are going to do and what they're not going to do, and kids don't take it seriously. I think that has to come, if I was a parent at this point, I would start telling my kids, because parents are not on social media generally.
That's not what I
And
was.
yeah, I think it needs to be communicated to parents to instruct your kids. If you see this kind of thing going on, please let us know. It has to come from the parent, I believe, because kids just don't take any of that stuff seriously. They think it's exciting, until it isn't.
Definitely a complex issue.
Yeah.
And I think the more that our children communicate on devices where they have privacy
Yeah.
and we're not used to sharing it with the parents or other folks, then we're going to have that ongoing issue.
Any other comments, questions?
Well, I would like to ask a
Yes.
question too, and again, this is because I don't know the answer to it.
Go ahead.
If we see the need for a traffic light, does that come from our Clemson Police Department? If it's on a state road, and then y'all sort of y'all communicate with the state about that? And the reason I'm asking is because I see there's several developments going up on Berkeley. And we already have a problem down there with Berkeley running into Issaquena, right across from Delwood. And it's just, sometimes it's like, you can hardly get out now. And now they're putting more developments down on our end. And also, the other place I noticed is, and it's become an issue when they put all those houses behind Patrick Square, is that intersection by the church. There's a Wesleyan church up there. Is that what it is? Behind Ingles, the four-way stop, and everybody now is stopping at a stop sign, and you kind of just gotta. Yeah.
There's always a lot of confusion.
And it's gonna be worse when all those houses come in, and I just wondered, we're gonna need some traffic lights in some of these places.
So every location you're talking about is a state road.
Yeah.
And the state has a procedure, and it's not necessarily complaint based. It's based on trips, and they do periodic traffic studies to see what the traffic is, and then they rate the intersection and so on and so forth. I'll give you an example. We have gotten multiple requests for a traffic light, either at Vista and 93 or in that little vicinity there, because when 93 gets very busy, people can't get out of the side streets. And the Department of Transportation has looked at it, and one of the things that they've told us is it's too close to the existing traffic lights to put another traffic light in. Now, there's a whole, not only procedure, but process and study that the traffic engineers do to come to that conclusion. And I don't know intricately what they are because I'm not a traffic engineer, but that's a lot of what they take into consideration. And in having conversations with them about 123 and other locations where we have traffic issues, there's a lot of different factors that go into that. And they are open to having conversations with us. And as a result of those conversations, there are some things that have changed. It's going to be interesting because I know once the university is done with frontage road on perimeter road at 76 in that area of Pendleton Road and all that, the whole dynamic is going to change as well. And how it's going to impact the other side of 76, we don't quite yet know. And then, of course, down Pendleton Road, you have the Milliken property that's going to be developed. It's going to be another Patrick Square type of development, and you'll have additional trips down there as well. So that's all part of the planning process.
Is that anything that we can make a recommendation or a comment to DOT? Is there any format for us to do that?
You can, but it wouldn't be any different than if a regular citizen made the inquiry.
It's
So-
not an issue now, but I sort of look ahead and I can see coming
Yes.
down the road, you're not going to be coming down the road.
I think with the pedestrian signs, it's kind of suggested the city and the city planner, Chris, and then the mayor may have gotten involved with the state.
Well, yeah, the engineer. Chris is the engineer.
Chris, the engineer.
And what happened there was the state was not opposed to putting the signs up. They just made the city pay for the signs.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, so things like that, they're willing to work with us on, but the state won't pay for it. They say, if you really want those signs, the city will pay for them and put them on.
So it looks like Holiday East, West, and 123 red lights are about to go live. I mean,
I think they told me they have to be up there a month before they go active. So the lights are up there. You see the burlap sacks over them now. And if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, they have to put some kind of signage out there to indicate when the light will go active. Because one part of the procedure is that the light will go active, but it'll just be on flash for a period of time before it starts cycling. It will be active before people start moving in over there, that's for sure, but it's,
right.
so between now and the beginning of school is when that light will come active.
So it's definitely needed for the folks to enter and exit the health center and Holiday East West, but do you have an opinion as to what it will do to the traffic dynamics on 123? Make it better, worse?
Well, I guess it depends on your point of view. If you live on Holiday East and West and you can't get out now, you're gonna like it because it's gonna cycle and you can get out.
But I didn't know
As far as backing it up, I've heard a lot of conversations about it backing up over the bridge and backing traffic up coming from that direction. And that's a possibility, but today it backs up at 133 all the way almost to the bridge. So, and then we have the light right at Cross Point Church that could potentially back it up. I think what it is, it's the volume of traffic. I mean, even now the students are gone and there's still a heavy volume of traffic on that road.
Well, the good thing is just slowing that traffic down comes from Coney County in the city. I think we'll, at least it'll be safe. Yeah, I would, you get all those cars sitting on that 123 bridge. I don't know if you've ever ridden under the bridge. There were articles in the paper about the Highway 24 bridge over Parkland, but the 123 bridge, it's a scary bridge if you're in a boat and look up under there.
So that question has come up, and I know if you go on our website, Conversations with Council, it'll have what the answer is. Because the structural integrity of that bridge has been questioned. The state of South Carolina, they inspect them every 2 years. They have to by federal law because they get federal money for that. And the civil engineers, after their inspection, have indicated that they're fine. I don't know if you recall, but I think it was sometime last year, there was some controversy that came out about a lot of the smaller bridges that are in the area, weight limits getting put on them because after they did the inspections, they realized the bridges were not able to take some of the weight for some of the commercial vehicles that were going over them. So they put weight limits in some areas. It caused concern because those weight limits prohibited emergency vehicles from going over them, and so on and so forth. So, or maybe it was more garbage vehicles, but there was a concern in those communities, and that was in the whole upstate. It wasn't just in this area.
All right. If there's nothing further, I get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor? All right, meeting is adjourned at 6:47. Thank you.
Thank you.